Good morning, everybody. How y'all doing? And boop, there we go. Men are up. Got them up early, 6 a.m. I'm glad you were up early too. Thank you all very much for joining us. Today is Thursday. We're going to be going over the warrant, the charges, and then everything in between those two. First, it's a warrant, then a charge, right? It's supposed to be. We're going to be going over that. And we're going to make sure this warrant stands up. Turns out our Donald is a warrant expert. I'm not joking. He is an expert in this stuff. So we'll be able to review this with him. And we'll see what he thinks. Is it a solid warrant or are there a bunch of holes? And if there are, what kind of holes? We're going to find out. And guess who I got to speak to? Our very own Chris Carver. Wow, he's a real gentleman for starters. He's a fisherman. He's a landscaper. He's a father. He mentioned a young son, he likes to go fishing with. He also mentioned his losses. He lost his father and his brother while he was away. He also talked as if he is a little naive and stuff about things, but he had optimism and he was very excited. What I really enjoyed was his ambition to assist others. Now, of course, when people get messed up with the legal system, their empathy starts to expand very quickly for others because they know what they're going through. That's kind of normal. What isn't normal, though, is a hardened terrorist believing in the legal system, even when they're in it. That's not normal. Someone that wants to hurt the system and hurt authorities, talking like assisting the system, that's not normal. So something's missing here, because he would be wanting to take down the system, take out the government, trying to get out, take them all out. That would be the wiring for the same type of person that would be taking on the government and trying to hurt police as they're accusing him. There is no evidence in my speaking with him that he even has the capacity to think that way. He's wired like a regular Canadian. He wants to help. He had a really fun conversation about how he built his business. He's a worker and he's young and he was trying to build everything. And then this kind of happened. What I did like is he didn't seem to be carrying any hate at all. He spends a lot of time with the Bible. He told me how in 2016 he kind of saw the light when it came to God. There were some things that he had identified and was very impressed with. And took it upon himself to follow up with a friend and start following the faith. And then, of course, getting in there gave him the time to read. So he's read the whole thing. He prefers the New Testament, but he's aware of the Old Testament as well. He is a genuine Canadian, and I'm very proud to have been able to spend some time with him. And that was exactly 20 minutes. You have 1 minute left, because that's the conversations he has to have now. People are listening. We know that. They have to. It tells you when they call. Press 1 to be recorded is basically what it says. So that's his world. And he did not seem to be broken by it. He absolutely seems like he's dealing with it. It's unfortunate. He knows where he's at. He's done his disclosure. He's read through his disclosure. He's numbered things. He's highlighted things. He's turned into a little paralegal without knowing it. So he's a good Canadian. I highly support him. After talking to him, I am absolutely convinced he is in the wrong place right now. He does not belong there. So now we're going to go through some of this evidence and the charges. And I say evidence because the warrant itself is evidence. So we'll be taking a peek at that. And then we'll get to see what the charges are. We talked about gun, prohibited gun. Did they all four have one? Whatever. We now know. So we can correct some of the stuff we said before, but we can also highlight some things we just found out. So on that note, I'm going to bring in Donald, Granny, and our special data collector, Danielle's back. Hello, Danielle. Good morning, everybody. How's everybody today? I'll start with Donald. How's Donald doing today?
Donald's doing just great. Some exciting things happening here and just good things happening in my life generally. So yeah, good day.
And how's the granddaughter?
Son,
my apologies. I didn't mean to gender change.
Well, actually, didn't I say we're going to wait until the kindergarten teacher decides?
Correct, as you should.
That is as we should, yeah. He's doing great. He's gained a kilo, doing great. Yep.
Oh, so he's a drug dealer now. Gained a kilo.
No comment. No comment on this channel. No comment. Okay. Yeah.
I got it. So I should block some time in the future for this. I understand. But good morning, Donald. Thank you very much for that. And I'm glad things are going good personally as well. That's good news. It seems to happen when you're working hard and good things are going on. Good morning, Danielle. I know this is bright and early for you, but here you are. You're here, big smile on and ready to go.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here, even though it's really early in the morning. This is more Granny's thing. She's normally up at this time.
Oh, for sure. But somebody has to wake the early birds up, so that will be us, right? Yeah. Good morning, Granny. Granny's got a smile, and she's in good spirits. I think you might be muted, Granny.
Good morning, everyone.
There you go.
Yes, I'm always up at 5 in the morning. I like to go to bed at 10 and I get up at 5. So this 6 a.m. thing, it's working for me.
Yeah, same here. I'm more of 11, but I'm still trying to get to earlier. But yeah, it works for me too, because it gives us the rest of the day. And what a way to start with your friends and working on something. So
perfect.
It works. So I kind of, talked about how I had a conversation with Chris yesterday, which was, thank you very much for arranging that and making that happen. And he was punctual. Right when you said he would call, he would call. So he's not like the cable company or something else. He'll call when he says he does. But thank you very much for arranging for that. And when was the last time you got to speak to Chris?
Yesterday. I talked to most of them every day, if not every second, or like Jerry and Tony's a little bit different. Chris and Chris, pretty scheduled. Tony was scheduled. I had them all scheduled. I had, Jerry in the morning. I had 2 o'clock Tony, and I had, Chris would be around 5, and then 7:30 would be Chris. And because they were all overlapping, and there's nothing worse than being on a call with one of them, and you can see another 1866 number trying to come through, because I can't call them back. So I spoke with Chris last night, and he said you were very easy to speak with. He said it was a good conversation. He spoke with you at lunchtime, and he spoke with Laura Lynn at supper time. So he had a really good day yesterday, good conversations, and thank you for making his day.
I'm so pleased. And he was so thankful. He kept saying that right at the beginning, right in the middle, and right at the end. He kept saying how thankful.
Well, Donald's article really perked him up. Just to read the words of somebody actually talking about them, period, in a good light. And it wasn't a biased light. Donald just wrote the truth. So to see the truth, and like I said, when Chris says to me, does he know who I am? Does he know I'm a good person? Like I'm a father, not a monster. Right. Like he's a person. And so thank you, Donald. You really did make these men's hope fill up again.
Absolutely. And coming from a police officer,
it's a low bar when simply stating the truth gives you hope. But I've been there and I understand. There's a total blackout on everything on this case. There shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even on that note, we got some more information from Danielle on what is the media ban, and we discovered that alt media really could have been covering this. In fact, mainstream media can still be covering this. They've just chose not to, and they used the ban as the excuse, it appears to me. Because reviewing the ban, it's very specific about specific things, and it allows the rest to be out there. In fact, the first words were, this is still an open court, except we're going to limit these things. So they could have been doing this the whole time. This is what I discovered yesterday.
You know what? They haven't really checked into it. I had a lady send a letter to Rebel News, and Rebel News's reply was, the government has a media ban. And I'm going, well, if they'd have been doing their job, they would know who put the media ban on, because that's their job. So I said, maybe you might like to email them back and just let them know that it was the defense that put the media ban on.
Granny, there may be 2 bans.
Oh, 2 bans.
The one that you're aware of.
Okay.
There may be 2 bans. The defendant ban that you're aware of, and there may be a government initiated.
Really interesting.
Well, that would explain Rebel, True North, and Western Standard.
Well, that'll be interesting to find out. Maybe Danielle knows more about this, because she's
I think. Yeah, that might be a secret one. I think what you got there was the correct answer. They're just not going to tell you more.
Well, and it's kind of funny because, like, I noticed probably since around Christmas time and on, even mainstream media has been very, very quiet about this. And global news hasn't reported a single thing on it. almost since around Christmas time, which is very rare, right? Even for somebody to have state charges or anything to do with the case. And then there's just been absolute crickets. In fact, even just the narrative softened, even in the mainstream media, if that makes any sense. Like it was less harsh almost, and much less of it. So I don't know what that means as far as bans or anything, but
well, I think the harshest would have been the defendant ban, because we weren't supposed to spoil the jury pool. But I think what Granny found out was Rebel and others were told, tread lightly.
Rebel's a liar, though. I wouldn't really trust what they
Well,
said to
Western
her.
standards are one.
I've got a pile of excuses from Ezra
Sure.
to why they're not helping, kind of from last year. And he'll say anything he has to get out of helping at this point, right?
Sure.
So it's been a lie as well.
Yeah, okay, but Western Standard's the one I'm going to put my hat on. I don't expect them to be quiet without a reason. And my contact there is a friend, and there's a reason. He can't tell me. So we're aware of the defendant ban. That's clear as day. We even have some notes from the court on that. But he can't share with me his gag, whatever's gagging him.
And that's why we're here. That's why
we're here. Yeah.
To pick this
And
apart.
I haven't received anything to tell me to be quiet yet. And as soon as that happens, you will know. And I probably would not comply with it because I have a lot more legal faith in my abilities to defend myself. So I would stand up to something that isn't legal. But in either case, nobody's told me anything at this point. I didn't get a letter, nothing. I do have some interesting government officials poking around my life now, but whatever. That's not a commitment by them to tell me to stop doing anything. So I'll keep going. But anyways, on that note, Donald, you took some time to take a really close look at this warrant. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the warrant up. Now, to be clear with everybody, this warrant appears to be from a public source. So the warrant was left in a public location. It wasn't part of the media ban. And other media has already published this. So we'll go ahead and bring this up. And I'm going to move the gentleman over to the right side now so I can see my head. There we go. All right, Donald, you have a copy of this as well. And this is the warrant to search for a location. You want to go ahead and take us through this?
Sure. Okay. First of all, before we go to the warrant itself, I just want to give a little general background on the obtaining of warrants, what the process is about. Now, remember, my experience with police, being a police officer obtaining warrants, was a few decades ago. However, since that time, I think the last warrant I obtained was 3 years ago in the United Kingdom, a civil search warrant called an Anton Pillar warrant. And if anything, the standards there are higher because you're not a police officer, although most people who would obtain the civil search warrant would have experience with police search warrants, but you don't have the credibility of a police officer. So the standards for warrants are very high all over. And for civil search warrants, Anton Pillar warrants, they should be even higher. Now, any police officer can go before a judge, and it used to be before a justice of the peace, but I think that they restricted some of that, and I'll get into why that happens. I see that this warrant is signed by a judge of the Provincial Court of Alberta. Now, first of all, there are courses that are taught all across this country, and there's one big one taught in Ottawa by the RCMP and the Department of Justice about how to obtain a warrant. And I know the course outline says minimum standards with the minimum legal standards. Yes, that's a minimum legal standard. But throughout the police forces, there are always people who are the go-to people, the go-to officers for warrants. And I was one of those. I worked, I was just very good. It takes some, can you still hear me?
I hear you. Yeah, you're good.
All right, fair enough. It takes some skill, and everybody has their different skills and levels of performance. and you have to start thinking like a lawyer. You have to anticipate defense moves. When you put a warrant, basically an information to obtain, it's called the search warrant. And what that is, it's a sworn document, and it can be augmented by other sworn documents, affidavits from other police officers or other people. And you put this package together, and there are certain tests that you have to meet, and you know these because presumably you've been educated. And I have no doubt that this search warrant and the information to obtain the search warrant would have been carefully supervised. It's quite obvious from the testimony at the inquiry and from some of the things that I see here in front of me, and some of the things that I see over here, even online now, that I don't think I can discuss. I have information here about the information to obtain the search warrant, and that's one of the things that I don't think we can discuss online anymore.
Well, actually, that is the main subject. You're right. Information to obtain is the ITOs, but only certain ones in certain paragraphs. So if there's a specific one that you want to talk about, we'd have to check.
Well, I have a newspaper article here from the 8th of September, 2022, from the Saskatoon Star Phoenix, published dozens of times across the country under all sorts of newspapers. It's a CP article. And it talks about that the newspapers had obtained a heavily redacted copy of the information to obtain this search warrant that is on the screen in front of us.
Right.
And some of the information that I'm reading in this newspaper article seems to be at odds with other things we know about the case and with some of the things that I see before me here. I'm going to be careful.
Yes,
Because I
please.
don't know if there was a ban after this article, which I found in an archive. Has it been taken down online? I don't know, but I
No, I
found
can
this
talk to
in.
that. Yes,
Okay,
so
go ahead.
they're using the redacted one, and the redacted one are the after ban one. The redactions are the bans. So not all of the ITOs were banned, and not the entire ITOs were banned. Some of them just had parts of it, the redacted. So they must be
So
using the post ban version.
it does
And
say
that's the legal one.
redacted, heavily
Right.
redacted version.
So
All
that's the
right, well,
publicly accessible version they're using there.
well, I presume so because it's here and it's in a couple of other places. So then I will talk to what's here.
Anything you found in Star Phoenix, we can talk about.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
But we're being careful, aren't we? Yeah, that's the way it is. Okay, so generally a police officer will go to a judge after putting this package together and swear to the judge that everything in the package is true
Under
to
penalty
the
of perjury.
to the best of my knowledge and belief. Does it mean that something will be disproven later?
Okay.
Things happen. In this case, we know that the police officers who obtained, and we know the chap's name, but the police officer who obtained Trevor Check.
Trevor check. We'll get there, Donald. We'll get there.
All right,
Here he
we're
comes.
back. All
Yeah,
right.
Trevor check.
Okay. Trevor Checkley, Constable Trevor Checkley. And I tried to do a little bit of research online just to see how experienced he was and such. I'm surprised, actually, that it was done by a constable. But then when I think back, yes, when I started doing them, I was a constable and I was pretty darn good. He's probably the go-to guy wherever he works. I see he's done some other warrants and been involved in other cases. So he's a very highly skilled, probably good storyteller. And by that, I don't mean that he tells lies.
Right.
I just mean that you have to be able to lay out the evidence and come to conclusions and convince the judge that to order to give you this search warrant, which bestows incredible powers upon police officers. So that's what was done. However, I have to think back to some of the search warrant courses that I took and a couple that I taught. And one of the interesting things here is when I look at the article here, the Saskatoon Star Phoenix, quote, arming police for a standoff against, or arming for a standoff against police is the title. And well, here I'll put this into the chat so you can, don't know if we want to call it up, but at least you'll have reference to it. There it is.
Okay, I'll get that ready for you.
Okay. So I used to give an example when I was teaching warrants about the motorcycle test, and it's this. You're looking for a stolen motorcycle, and you have reason to believe because maybe an informant saw it in the house, maybe maybe someone looked in through the window, maybe you heard, whatever reason, you know there's a Harley Davidson sitting inside that house in the living room. Now, if you put on that search warrant, you're looking for a Harley Davidson motorcycle. And by the way, can you take that down and put the warrant up again?
Absolutely. I'll work on that. You keep going.
So if you're looking for a Harley Davidson motorcycle, and that's what it says on the warrant, and you kick in that door, and there's the Harley Davidson motorcycle sitting in all its glory in the living room, and I've seen one, believe it or not, well, your search is over. But if you include something that is small enough to be in that bedroom drawer or hidden anywhere, like the ownership for the Harley Davidson motorcycle, then you're allowed to open every drawer, look in the freezer, unwrap the meat.
I see what you're saying.
You get it?
Yep.
That's a standard technique. Now let's go through this warrant. We're going to start at the very top, and we're going to go through the warrant, and I'm going to just talk about what's in here. Okay. First of all, warrant to search under section 487 of the Criminal Code. And that's the section where warrants are issued. And it's in the Provincial Court of Alberta, the Criminal Division, and it's Ailsby, Judge Ailsby, Ailsby. I have no doubt that he's a very senior judge and experienced in this. He would have been chosen. They knew this warrant was going ahead. We know that from the testimony at the inquiry, that they were talking on the day this was issued about the threat. And don't forget, this warrant was based upon the threat. And we'll get to that in that newspaper article.
Now, Danielle wanted to add something there?
Yes.
Danielle, did you want to add something?
I think it's a female, just for the record.
Oh, we want to be gender correct, don't we?
Yes, again this morning. So that's 2.
That's 2. Oh, no, 3 times that we get taken down.
So the judge is a female, did you say?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, well, great, wonderful.
Wonderful.
I have no doubt that she is very experienced. Yeah, because they would have they wanted this to go off very well. So this is to peace officers in the province of Alberta. So this is who can execute this warrant. And it says, paragraph 1, whereas it appears on the information on oath, he swore an oath. Constable Trevor Checkley swore an oath that everything he was telling the judge was true. Now, you know, we had a little set to in court there last week when the original Crown was taken off the case, and we heard that he may be a witness, he may even be a defendant. And we heard that the RCMP were lawyering up and that the Law Society was involved. and that there was a sealed envelope which purported to contain evidence. Well, I'm just speculating here, and it's pure speculation, ladies and gentlemen. But suppose Trevor Checkley deliberately told a fib. Wow.
Deliberately. That's a good word.
Suppose
going.
he deliberately told a fib, not just made a mistake, although, what's a mistake and what was deliberate? Sometimes it's done in a very certain way. It used to be, before the courts started paying attention to warrants, that people could obtain warrants in a very sloppy manner. Police officers would go to, would put 2 or 3 pages together, go to the local justice of the peace that they knew on a Friday night, bring a bottle of Crown Royal, get the justice up out of bed, because he was one of the guys you could get up out of bed at 11 o'clock.
Or she.
Everybody knew. Or she.
That's it. That's our time there, Danielle. Go on, Danielle.
You could get them.
They, them.
Zero.
Ooh.
You could get zero out of, anyway. Anyway, bottom line is, sometimes you'd even bring a bottle of Crown Royal. And then the judge would read this, or the justice, and he'd say, "Oh, how do you know the motorcycle is there? I mean, has anyone really seen it?" And even though it didn't say so in the information to obtain, one of the police officers might say something like, well, I see something that looks like a handlebar through the window. And that might have been true, and it might not have. That was the old days, 60s, early 70s. That started, there was a big crackdown on that in the mid-70s. And that's when I joined the police force. And I ended up falling into doing these warrants. And I can tell you that even at that time, and especially now, warrants are a very serious matter. No one would bring a bottle of Crown Royal to get a warrant in the middle of the night. You better have your stuff together, because the defense lawyers are going to tear it apart. There's also another consideration. There's an ongoing investigation here. How much do we want to reveal in the warrant itself when we execute that first warrant? How much do we want to hide from this gang of monsters, these terrorists that we're looking at here? Or from the biker gang, or from somebody who's committed a fraud, and we don't want him to call all his buddies. So there are these balances, but they can come back to bite you in court, because there's a developing section of the law where if you fail to include exculpatory evidence in the information,
You want to tell people what that means? Exculpatory.
That means
what that means?
evidence of innocence.
Innocence. Yeah.
Or evidence that could be seen as innocent. Or if you do the tunnel vision and you just take a certain piece of the larger evidence without context and you make it sound sinister. If you do all that, then you can get into trouble. And no doubt there are going to be days and days of battles fought over this search warrant, and probably already are.
Can I ask you a couple questions on it?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so we watched that RCMP interview, or the press release, where she told us everything at that point, and that was on February 14th. Now, it was clear to me when she was talking that she said they had evidence and information that led to the search warrant for them to go there. She said that we had information that there was a separate group together that was armed, and we had to take action on that. I don't see that in the search warrant. What I see in the search warrant is mischief. And what I see in the search warrant is
you won't see the information to obtain. But I'll tell you what is missing here, and that's the guns.
Well, that's what I mean. So this search warrant is searching for information about providing security for the Coutts protesters. And a
Remember,
mischief charge. I know you're
I'm
saying
sorry.
you keep
Go
it.
ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, you're saying you're keeping it broad, but I'm confused why they were telling the judge we're interested in mischief if they had information at that point about the conspiracy to commit murder. That's what
Okay.
I'm very confused with this warrant. Why isn't it targeting what they said they were searching for and had information on?
Well, this is going to be an interesting battle in court when it comes out.
Mm.
Now, let's continue to go through this, and then I'll contrast it with the article that's here.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay. Remember what I said, the Harley Davidson example, where you find the Harley Davidson, the search warrant's over, but if you're looking
Right.
for the ownership, you can look anywhere.
Right.
What do we have here? For
A very
mischief,
broad statement.
for mischief over $5,000, that's what we're proving. We're not proving weapons.
Correct.
We're not getting this under conspiracy to murder. We obtained this under mischief. Why? Well, suppose we can't prove the conspiracy to murder. Suppose we can't prove the weapons. Suppose that doesn't work out. So we take an offense that we can prove, or we believe we can prove, which is the mischief.
Yeah.
And what are we looking for? Well, we're looking for a piece of paper, documents. We're looking for that Harley Davidson ownership. Remember, I said that lets you open any drawer, look for anything.
Right.
So this is the way it's been crafted, is to allow a search everywhere and anywhere, where it lists here, for the smallest little thing, data. That means electronic too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So
Anything.
this is one of the most powerful types of search warrants because it is totally open-ended. Even you're not looking for specific data, you're just looking for data. Even if you find some, you get to continue. They could have torn the walls out of those trailers and homes if they wanted to. So, documents and data relating to the planning, organization, and operations of the protest group's security for the Coutts blockade. So we're not looking for weapons. We're looking for tiny little pieces of data. We can do anything we want.
Planning. Yeah.
Now the things are located at a certain address, and here we go, including any outbuilding and any trailer.
That
That's
bothers
interesting.
me. Yeah, you picked up on that too.
Well, that's actually being very complete. There's a famous case where homicide officers from the Toronto police, homicide, they're the best. And they put in a search warrant for first-degree murder that they wanted to search the dwelling house of a certain suspect. And they failed to include
Outbuildings
the
or something.
detached garage, the outbuildings. And they found evidence there which they claim showed this suspect committed the murder. But it was tossed by the judge. Wow. So
outbuildings not the word I have a problem with. It's trailers.
yeah,
Because that fits their narrative, and that's what they reported to us. But there's no gun asked for in here.
well, the trailers, let's talk about the trailers. We have the address here, and the trailers are indicated to be trailers, okay? But you can't go into a dwelling house without you have to tell the judge you're going to a dwelling house. Now, the trailers, were they in the information? Did they tell the judge that people were living there in the trailers? Or did they indicate to the judge that these were just storage trailers? That matters. And so we go to the next page. It authorizes the officers at any time between February 13th, 2022 at 10 p.m. And that means, first of all, this warrant was issued on the 13th day of February, 2022. So was it issued in the afternoon, in the morning? I don't know. Doesn't really matter, I don't think. But 10 o'clock is the start. So you can go in after 10, and you must have completed it by February 17th, 2022, midnight. Now, that's a pretty broad time frame. So what this warrant was a ticket to do the search anytime during those 4 days. In my mind, this can sometimes be done because you're waiting for someone to arrive with the drugs. You're waiting for one of the co-conspirators to come with, whatever it is you're looking for, guns in this case, I guess. Or you want to have the option to go in right away if something happens. So they've given themselves a little bit of leeway here, 4 days. Okay, that's kind of normal. It doesn't indicate, they may have known they were going to do it right away on February 13th, and they did. They would have been ready, because I think they went in, it started just before midnight, I think. So they knew this was being obtained. Everybody was getting ready. They were just waiting for the paper, waiting for the warrant. So that's what, I'm not reading too much into that February 13th, February 17th. That's just the way things are done. Now, this is very interesting. It allows the coppers to enter into the residence, a residence. The and a are different. The residence. There was one residence indicated in this warrant. And any outbuildings and trailers. Now, those trailers, if people were living in them, if they were sleeping in them, cooking meals, using the toilets, having a shower, whatever they were doing, and they were, travel trailers, vacation trailers, whatever you want to call them, they were dwelling houses, as far as I'm concerned. And I think that would be a defense point. So, because this warrant talks about entering into the dwelling house, not all of them.
Okay, done. Yep.
Really?
I get that point.
That's important. Okay, all right. And search for said things, and to bring them as soon as practicable before this judge or any other judge.
Well, I have a question for you now, if
yes,
you don't
go
mind
ahead.
there, Donald, because I want to kind of get through this, because we have to get to the charges too.
Yeah.
Okay. Does this allow them to take the guns? Because that's not data or documents.
Right. The answer is there is a doctrine, basically open site. That's why you get.
But it would have to be illegal on that doctrine. It has to be an illegal thing. These were registered and long guns.
Right. But if we go in, even though we didn't state conspiracy to commit murder, and we have that in our minds, and we think we can lay a charge, we think we can convince the court, then those guns, and maybe that tea kettle over there, whatever it is, can be evidence of a criminal offense. And if they see it, if they'd have found drugs, they would have seized those. If they'd found firearms that they say are part of the conspiracy, they could do those. So these were probably seized according to the warrant and everything. They were seized under the rules, except I'm very concerned about this definition of trailer versus residence. So when we look at the newspaper article, we see something quite different. We see that they were, in the information to obtain, they said that there were hundreds of firearms.
Really? That was
Yeah.
in the Star Phoenix?
Well, it says so in this article. And
Yeah, okay. The one you gave me
yes.
the link to, right?
Yes. So heavily armed protesters, and the police located only 15 firearms. And they believe that Olenek had equipment stored outside of Coutts, and some of the things didn't arrive. Where are we here? I'm trying to get the.
Yeah, there you go. They had hundreds of guns and thousands of rounds right here.
There you go.
Yeah,
There you go.
hundreds of guns and thousands of rounds. I can't highlight it.
So that's him telling the undercover. So that would have been back before the wiretaps were put on. And that would have been when the undercover was actually making notes. So that's kind of where all of this started, and gave them kind of their direction with talking to Tony. And I do believe that conversation, and according to him, was completely taken out of context, right? She was acting as if she was a gun enthusiast and a hardcore protester and a Southern Alberta rural girl kind of thing, which would have gotten him interested in talking about maybe guns in the area. And so that conversation, from what I understand, was them talking, just kind of like how we all talk, like, right, I've got a bunch of farmhouses within 5 kilometers, and I'm sure there's probably right now hundreds of guns and thousands of rounds of ammunition around me, guaranteed. So that was the kind of the context of the conversation, according to Tony, and that would have been a note that she would have made later on in the day, is that he had made that comment. Oddly enough, that comment was made earlier on the 9th of February. And when you think about the chain of events, the unauthorized wiretap wasn't put on until about a day and a half after that conversation even happened. So the imminent threat part of all of that, and the way that went down. And again, back to that, the search warrant, if they were so convinced that these things had happened, they wouldn't have had a problem, I'm assuming, getting guns and ammunition onto that search warrant along with this documents and data. If all of these things played out, if this same undercover witnessed a hockey bag coming in and had such high suspicions of these weapons coming in, and that Tony's made these comments, and that's what that actually means, why wouldn't those statements have been on an ITO for a search warrant for guns? I mean, that should have been fairly easy to do, considering he'd already been wiretapped at that point.
Okay, we're mixing up here. We must be careful to remind ourselves we're talking about the warrant itself. During the information to obtain, and I've done informations to obtain that are thousands of pages on major cases. I've no doubt that the information to obtain here was also backed up by affidavits from the undercover officers. I mean, if I were putting it together, I would have. But what they've done here strategically is they have only asked for the minimum offense that they believe that they can prove, which is mischief. But they have such a wide range of powers to search that they knew going in they were looking for firearms. That's obvious from the information to obtain, that they knew they were looking for firearms. My question is there a defense strategy there, or a defense move that in some way this warrant was not in good faith? Is it still allowed that you only go in for the minimum that you're looking for and then continue to gather evidence? I don't know what the current case law is on that. How about you, Jason?
Well, that's why I was pushing back on you a little bit there, because you can't just take items that you think might be used for something else. It's not in the warrant.
Not might. I saw it, and when I saw it, I'm just extrapolating here. If I went in on this warrant, and I knew that within hours we thought we would have enough or we did have enough for the conspiracy to murder, and I went in and I saw 15 guns there, I would say to myself, you know, under everything that I know, and I'm just guessing, I haven't seen the ITO, I haven't seen anything, but you could say to yourself as a police officer, I believe now that I'm here and I'm looking at that coffee cup, I saw that coffee cup in a similar picture with one of the accused. I believe that this coffee cup is now a piece of evidence that I now recognize as being relevant to the charge. So, no, you can pretty well find anything you want, as long as in good
Well,
faith you do it.
your,
But
your
my
question
question,
was your question was, as a defense, what would I do? And that's what I
okay,
would do.
okay. The question is, this warrant was obviously compared with the information in the article that's right ahead of us, which talks
Hmm.
about the information to obtain. This warrant was so limited as a strategic maneuver so that it would be more difficult to disprove. If they put the conspiracy in here, they would have to, they really would leave themselves more open. By narrowing this to only the mischief charge, they did that because they think it gives them a stronger position in court with this warrant. That's their strategy, in my estimation. My question is there a defense move against that? Is there any case law that
Oh, for sure.
prohibits that type of thing now?
For sure. Well, this will be fruit of a poisonous tree. So if this warrant in any way, shape, or form is invalidated on any part, a single letter or a paragraph, everything that comes from it is tossed.
Could be tossed.
So that's what the defense strategy could be, is to go after, it could be tossed, you're right, to go after the warrant itself and to show it's invalidated. My trouble with this warrant isn't the trailers like you have about the dwelling stuff. My trouble is, what information did they have ahead of time and what were they really looking for? And those guns weren't illegal. You can have them. So I would push hard as a defense to say there's no crime there with those guns, so you can't seize them. There's a whole bunch of problems with this. And I also want to point out one thing that Star Phoenix has here, that they were accused of, others were other unknown identified individuals in what was believed to be a highly organized group. So now we know, after the POEC, the highly organized group they're referring to is Diagolon. So there is no highly organized group. There never was one. So what is that based on? And this is what I would also be attacking in the information to obtain, is where did you get the information that this was a highly anything? I think there's a lot of problems with the warrant, and this information from the information to obtain is weak as well. Now, we're not going to have time to get to the charges, Donald, so we
I'm
can do
not
the
so
charges on
sure.
Monday.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt there.
Please go,
I'm
Danielle.
not so sure that they are talking about Diagolon in this article. There were subsequent articles around. When is this one put out?
April.
September of 2022.
Okay, so
Okay.
even more of those types of articles started to get published. There was another release of ITOs. I think it was around November 2022, where there was indications that there was communications out with people outside of Coutts during the whole event. And they were trying to kind of tie in that these guys were connected with people who hadn't come into Coutts, but they were the bosses. You might have seen some of the articles where they talk about the bosses and this and that. I do not believe that they're talking about Diagolon in that situation. That Diagolon thing kind of went quiet after the initial big push. But the articles that they start talking about in about November start to talk about bosses outside of Coutts, just simply because, and it is it is kind of like published this way in the papers, that somebody had asked somebody to publish, not on mainstream media, that this was about to change not just vaccines, but like healthcare, politics, education, everything needs to be reformed. Let people know. That's kind of his instruction to one of them, one of the four then shared it with the other ones. This is how they connected a boss to the men. So the
The
person,
unknown, unidentified boss.
the unidentified person that is in the documents is considered a boss because he was telling them what to do. He told one of them to share this with the others and post this to non-mainstream media. That's all it took for Trevor Checkley to affidavit that there was a boss involved. It was just as little as that. It isn't even as deep as Diagolon being considered a part of this group. It was
Here's why I'm concerned.
outside of Coutts that were like, you know, telling the guy, oh, we should do this or you should do that. And the guy's trying to get them to come up. And these communications with these people outside of Coutts that's all I need. That's a boss. He told you what to do and you did it. That looks like a boss to me.
I get what you're saying.
How minute it is. Yeah.
Right. But November is when they brought Jeremy Mackenzie in to testify about this. And he denied that there was any connection to the Coutts men.
And
So at that point, I understand.
Yeah.
I understand completely. But this is what they were painting as the motives and the situation during the POEC in November.
Wow.
So after this article, they were still in the POEC saying Diagolon was the group that the men were part of.
Yeah.
Now, it wasn't proven in the POEC at all. What was
Yeah.
proven was that there was none. But at this point, maybe you're talking about another group, or maybe you're just simply there was a simple thing.
It was literally.
No, I understand there, Danielle. But what I'm trying to say is maybe it was as simple as Jeremy said, "Don't trust the mainstream media. Share this everywhere else," and they called that a boss giving command.
No, I
don't
know
know.
the details behind it. It was an actual person that is associated with one of the men.
Okay, so that's information I don't know.
Yeah. So a friend of one of the men's was in communication with him during Coutts. A friend, a person from around here.
But
Okay.
in a way, hang on, folks.
Yeah.
We're discussing little minutia things. What really counts is what the officer who swore this believed at the time, genuinely believed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if he genuinely believed and he had that information, and it wasn't just tunnel vision and we can't prove he lied or anything like that. If he genuinely believed the car was yellow and it turned out to be green, the judge would probably go, so what? We found all these guns.
Right,
right. Yeah.
That would be a simple mistake.
Yep.
So is it
Right.
normal that the person writing the affidavit doesn't have anything to do with the operation in the first place? Is that
Absolutely.
what they're
Yeah, that's fine.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, a lot of times the person that you think should write it isn't comfortable and isn't good at writing them, so they get someone else to do it.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's normal. It's fine.
You just
It doesn't mean anything.
all of the information of the file, and here you write it what you think happened.
Yeah, but what's important is who signs the affidavit that supports it, because they have to have direct knowledge.
Okay, so the
But-
person that signed that affidavit for the ITOs for that search warrant was not part of the operation.
You're very wrong there in this way, okay? It's not just one document. It's the ITO, the information to obtain, and that was signed by Constable Trevor Checkley.
And that's
But
fine.
there might have been 10 affidavits signed
Correct.
by 10 police officers. There might have been photographs. There might have been tapes and voice recordings and videos. We simply don't know. But Trevor there, he looked at it all.
Yeah.
And he said, I believe it. And he probably had the assistance of a Crown, and it was in process for weeks.
Okay, and I think the issues that we're dealing with now, that's in a sealed envelope, will be related to these documents. One of them, or all of them, or some piece of them, or an affidavit that was sworn to that supported it, something along those lines.
And if somebody lied, and if the Crown knew, I mean, look, we're just guessing here, but if somebody lied on the foundation that supports this warrant, wow, that's tough to recover from that.
And that could be something that's found in that dump of discovery at the last minute, and something inattentionally sent as well. That's what you could be looking for here as well. Danielle, you want to add any to that before we sign off?
No, I just kind of was curious about if it's normal that they use as much force as necessary at night for documents and data, typically.
Yes, is the answer. And they had the special exception there that let them do it at night. And then the very last line of that warrant was as much force as necessary. So, yeah, it's pretty normal, Donald. Am I wrong about that? That they go from as much force as necessary and even do it at night?
That's right. And don't forget, there were hundreds of firearms,
Right.
firearms
And thousands of
in those
ammunition.
homes, thousands of rounds of ammunition.
Yeah. So there, I do see some problems if I was trying to defend this with that warrant,
Correct.
for sure. And I
Yeah.
have a lot of questions around a lot of the things they ended up doing, for sure. And I'm sure the defense is looking at all of those as well. And that could be what they were looking for in the data dump, and then they found something that they weren't supposed to see. Well, when I say not supposed to see, I mean somebody else didn't want them to see it, and then they found it. And that could have led to where we're headed here too now. Danielle, thank you for that extra information. So there's a whole bunch about the background of this that is not in our head at all, and this is why we enjoy having you here. So thank you for that. Cool. Thank you. Do you want to say anything before we sign off, Danielle? No, Danielle's good. Okay, cool. And then Granny, sorry we didn't hear much from you. So how about we jump to you, and what do you think about this episode so far? We're pulling apart this warrant. There's a police officer looking at stuff. There's a legal guy looking at stuff. What do you think about what we were talking about today?
Well, I'm actually really enjoying it because I wasn't there at the start because, like I said, I was in Ottawa, and then it took me a while to find everybody. I'm a normal person. I'm just a grandma. So all this legalese and all this definitions, right down to the and not
Residents, right?
It's interesting, and because we've all been, it's been so quiet out there. I know people that are watching this are enjoying this because we get to actually hear something now and get to understand what happened. And yeah, so I'm really enjoying this.
Yeah, me too. And I think what I might be able to do is take this episode and maybe get a lawyer to join us to talk about the charges and the criminal code part of this as well. And a defense lawyer, hopefully, so they can speak to what Donna was talking about, the things they would defend against on this warrant. We don't have to defend the men. We can just take it, hey, if you received this warrant, this was your case, how would you address this type of situation? And I think that might be helpful. So I'll work on that. Now, Donald, thank you so much. That was a really good breakdown. And I really like the fact that you and I can talk about it and work our way through some of this, because you have a good chunk of the picture. I have some of the picture. We put it together, we get the full picture.
Well, today I was the prosecutor and you were the defendant. Or the
And this is how
lawyer.
we get information out too.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't forget,
I enjoy that.
I'm trying to keep us grounded here in reality. My heart goes out to these guys. I think they are political prisoners.
Yeah,
But I'm also a guy who's kicked in a lot of doors and arrested a lot of people. So I don't want to present a happy face to everything here. I want reality, just the truth. That's all we're after, just the truth.
Absolutely. And now I have a lot more questions about that press release that we watched from the RCMP, because it doesn't match up with this warrant at all. And I'm also having questions about when was the first one arrested? I thought a couple of them were arrested on the 13th, and then the charges for mischief came later. Granny, can you?
I can.
Danielle.
Oh, sure.
Or Danielle. Yeah, Danielle, please. Yeah, when were they actually arrested?
Yeah, I always thought that was interesting. The press kind of did a good job of like molding everybody's mind to picture everybody in a trailer with a bunch of guns, right?
Right,
All these
right.
people are like, especially the four guys, right? So when I first found out Tony had been arrested, so first Chris Lysak gets arrested in front of smugglers in and amongst all the protesters at about 9 a.m. on February 13th.
9 a.m., well before this.
9 p.m. It's too early.
9 p.m. Okay.
9 p.m. on February 13th. Tony kind of finds out that there's rumors that Chris had been arrested. He's not around anymore. He starts videotaping a little bit more and start walking around. So he's well aware that Chris has been arrested. He didn't go try to find guns or the other guys or do any running around trying to, rally the troops or none of that. He kept videotaping.
Which you would do if you were part of a plan. So yeah, you're highlighting that was not
so
normal.
he keeps videotaping. He's got, Instagram videos right up until his arrest, almost right before, where he's just kind of chatting with people and talking about wishing those cops would put the guns down and come and have coffee with us. Last
Right.
words he ever spoke, literally. So he gets arrested about 9:50 in the evening, about an hour, almost an hour after Chris Lysick, in a separate location, but near the protest, in and amongst the protesters as well. Chris Carbert was sleeping in his trailer when they did the actual raid on the property, which was around.
So that would have been here. Okay.
So that way he was, sleeping in his trailer. He kind of got woken up when they started yelling and screaming. And he also knew about the other two being arrested. Somebody had come and told him that Tony and Chris had been arrested. However, he was really unwell and very tired. He's like, nothing he could do about it. He went to bed just to be woken up, over 2.5 hours later to be arrested as well. And then the fourth, Jerry he wasn't even anywhere around. He was at home, headed to work kind of in the morning, in the afternoon, after having gone out for the morning in and around Calgary. So he was in a separate location. So he was arrested February 14th at about 2 p.m. So everybody separate, unarmed.
Not running when they heard the other ones arrested, not hiding.
They all knew, every one of them. Jerry knew that the others had been arrested. Everybody knew that somebody had been arrested. Then that was their reactions. So
wow, that sheds a lot of light for me, to be honest.
Yeah, and in fact, we do have that video of Chris Lysick's arrest, so it's very clear where and what he was doing and his mindset. The uttering threats is all in there. What they, are accusing him of uttering threats. It's a joke, right? You can quite clearly hear that he's making just a comment that he likes the officer's gun, right? And he's trying to he's nervous. Obviously, they're very heavily armed around him. That's a sexy gun, he says, just kind of joking and giggles. And that's what they kind of view, within the video, you can kind of see how it plays out, where somebody leads the police to Chris and kind of identifies him, and at that point tells him that they're about to arrest him for uttering threats. So even with the initial arrest, where he doesn't know anybody's been arrested, there's clear evidence that he's not, as he's videotaping the police and going, okay, well, this guy looks a little bit more scary. It's those guys back there. He's saying they're not marked. They're in the bushes. He's like, people, that's who and he's videotaping them, right? So that doesn't look to me like somebody who is about to go and get their co-conspirators and round up all these guns and do something about it, right?
And I don't hear an imminent threat either.
They're literally being accused. It is reported that they were going to use force against the RCMP if the RCMP moved in on them. So they were literally in the position that they are being accused of reacting in, and they don't react. So I think their innocence is in their non-reaction right from day one. It's been an absolute joke that you set them up to be in the position you're accusing them to react in. There was nothing. There's absolutely no reaction.
Wow.
They're not together. They're not armed. They don't even know the other people in the other trailer or the house, really. It's just not.
I got to admit, I thought even until you told me all of that, I even thought that 3 of them were arrested together, 1 separately. No. That's not even the case. And
it's interesting because when coming back to the whole with as much force as necessary at night, it is kind of, they go in to describe that a little bit more. And it said, due to the fact that we don't want the risk of I'm going to word this differently. The protesters could potentially come in and block the police or interfere if we don't do this at night away from their main location.
Most of these are at night, though. Just so you know. No, they always do it at night.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the justification for that. Well, however, then they justify that, but then they arrest Tony and Chris in front of everybody at the protest with heavily, loaded, crazy big guns while they're unarmed.
You're 100% right here.
Truly, genuinely concerned that the protesters are going to jump. That's how the ITs are also worded, is to kind of think, the protesters are going to do something. We've got to be careful. Well, you didn't consider that when you took Tony and Chris down in front of everybody with all your guns. It wasn't a concern at that point.
You got a point there. Yeah, they weren't worried about the crowd.
No.
Did you see Jacqueline's comment a second ago?
No. Can you put him back up there, chat? Conspiracy charges were laid until the next day. Yeah.
They were charged with mischief.
Yeah. Much later. Tony, it was at least the next day, later into the next day when they decided to lay those charges as well. Yeah.
So, Donald, are you seeing what I'm seeing? There's a timeline problem here. Things were happening before things were said to be happening, and there's a timeline problem here with this warrant, in my opinion.
Well, the first thing I'll say is I'm so happy that Danielle is here.
Yeah.
I
We're
am.
going to change this to the Danielle show. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm so happy that she's here, and that insight that you gave us that after a couple of the members of this supposed terrorist organization were arrested, well, the other guys went to bed.
Yeah, exactly. So while the members are
Went
arrested,
to work.
and keep in mind,
And work. That doesn't sound like
right.
that.
Or they just
And-
flee you. Yeah.
And Donald, the guy who went to sleep has the cache of guns, according to them.
Well,
Like, come on, this makes no sense.
okay.
Like even
look,
Hollywood
look.
would shake their head and not produce this.
All right. But we have to also remember that this warrant and takedown was probably in play for a whole week or 2 weeks, whatever it was. And they were building piece by piece by piece. And they probably even had a little meeting with their undercover girlies and said, hey, Sue, or whatever her name was, we're missing this piece. Go in and get them to talk about
A large
A,
amount
B,
of
or
guns or
C.
something.
Like that. Okay,
Yeah.
that's the way it's done. But once again, tunnel vision. This is what they think they have. So they gather evidence that proves only that, and everything else, the exculpatory evidence, they don't log it, they don't see it, they deliberately ignore it. If we have that situation here, and they obtained they obtained this warrant on tunnel vision, well, there's another defense, and I believe that
Sure.
the politics. This was all politically driven. They knew about it in Ottawa before the warrant went down. I think we saw that from the commission. And to me, that means that the politicians and the political side of this were involved in the creation of and the timeline and the date and time of execution. And if all that is true, and I believe it is, but that's my opinion. If that comes out too, well, we'll see. All I can say is it's all a big mystery. I want to see the evidence. These men deserve their day in court, and they deserve to be out with an ankle bracelet or whatever, just
Give
like
them
that
2 if you have to.
cop killer in Toronto. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. And when you said tunnel vision, you're right, because sometimes they think they have something and they're heading in that direction. But another type of tunnel vision, which is very dangerous, is not when they think they have something, when they want to have something, or they're going to say they have something, and they do that to tunnel vision, because that's creating the outcome. The first one you mentioned,
building a box in police lingo.
yeah. So the first one
the
first one you mentioned may be honest mistake, because they think something bad happened, so they're following it. The one I'm referring to is more deliberate and more malicious, where they are planning to have some sort of outcome, and they're just finding the players and adding them to it.
Creating the narrative after. Yeah.
Correct. So that's a different type.
What's happening in court with this whole crown removed? Did someone tell a lie, knowingly tell a lie? Was the crown aware of it? Were the police aware of it? Did they do it together? My goodness, I have never seen this happen in decades in the court. Never. I really
there's a
know
mess
what
here.
happened.
Well, and on that note, there was a mention in court by one of the defense lawyer who's making this next application. She was kind of requesting a little bit of leniency as far as time, because she did mention to she can't really say anything to the judge, but she keeps trying to drop little bombs to kind of get the importance across. And she said, my goal is to have it ready by Monday, Friday, one of those days. However, given that this is an anomaly, it is appearing to be an anomaly in case law. It is going to take a while to compile the case law for this application. So to me,
that's weird talk. Yeah,
I know it is, right? And I've never been in court, so it's like, you're like, this isn't normal, right? Like anomaly in case law means this hasn't happened before, right?
Correct.
So yeah, how do you compile case law for a motion when you're picking and choosing things that almost just barely look like it because it's never happened before? Like, what could that possibly mean?
No kidding. Now, Granny, I'm just going to end on this note. So I found out that the court is scheduled for the full week. Okay, so I'm making plans to be there the full week and be there for the full week. Originally, it was just for the 25th, but now we understand court could be all 4 days. So we're making arrangements to do that. All right, so look, this ran a little bit long again. It starts to be a thing for us. And Donald, I think I'm going to try really, 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 really hard to get a defense attorney to meet us next week, and then we can go over these charges a little bit more, because you bring up a whole bunch of really good points, and the dwelling, the residence, the trailer, all of that. I think we need to examine that a little bit more. So thank you, Donald, and thank you very much, by the way, for holding your ground on all of this. It's important that we keep ourselves grounded. Thank you. Granny, do you want to say goodbye, and then we'll wrap up with Donald and then Danielle?
You bet. So I would like to thank the Netherlands is watching our show right now.
I saw that.
I saw a comment go by, and they've wrote the man multiple times, and they support all over the place on Facebook, and so it's being shared far and wide. So this show is so important. Please share, and share some more. You know that. This finger hit the button. It has great power. And look at the Netherlands is watching, and that means others out there in the world are watching our 4 Alberta family men. Never forget their names: Chris, Jerry, Tony, Chris. Love you guys, and thank you.
Love you all. And yeah, they were great guys, especially if you get to speak to them. Do it. Donald?
Once again, the more we talk about this, the more optimistic I am. And I want to again just highlight Danielle. What a great little bit of knowledge she brings to this. You know, that just changed everything when she told me that after members of this terrorist group were arrested, the others went to sleep and went to work.
Yeah, that's exactly. ISIS is saying, I'm sorry, what? This is not how we do that.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. And Danielle,
we didn't get that story from the newspapers, did we? Or from the police. No, one guy went to sleep. One guy went to work. No.
Yeah, of course.
No.
And Danielle, what I'd like to do is, and I'm sorry about this next part, can you join us every day? Can you now be part of our core here?
Okay, I'll join you every day if we can change this to like 8 o'clock at night.
Sorry, at night even. No, you sound like you're writing a warrant all of a sudden. You want midnight shows now?
Okay.
If you look at a different time zone, we'll have you covered. Yeah, I'm sorry. Maybe we can get you here every second day or so. Because
I'll do my best. It's just I'm in a friend's office here in town, right, because of my bad reception. So if I hopefully can get something a little more sorted, so I don't have to get her out of bed so early. We're both out in the country, so we're both trucking on in here at 5:30 in the morning, and I'll just have to see if she's okay with that as well. So
yeah, I think it's important that you join us. I'll even put you on the thumbnail and everything.
And I think it's funny when you said the other day you were worried that there wasn't enough to kind of keep a show going, and I laughed. I'm like, we haven't even scratched the surface.
Not believe
even
you're
a
correct.
little bit. Like, you couldn't make this stuff up, hey Granny? How many times do we say that? Like, at first we're like, oh, this is going to be a movie one day, and this was like over a year ago. Oh, this is going to be a movie one day, and now all of a sudden it's oh shoot, I think we're on like part 9 of a documentary series. Like, there's no stopping it. So there's definitely lots and lots and lots, and you can't make this stuff up. So it's
absolutely
very interesting, and it's exciting to share it with people who are as excited about it as we are. So
that's awesome, Danielle. And it only takes 21 days to build a habit. So on day 21, you'll be fine with getting up early. It'll be your new thing. You'll be an early bird with us. So thank you very much for that. I think it's very important. You've done an excellent job on helping fill in exactly what we need when we need it. So thank you for that.
My honor. Yeah.
Your honor. You guys are the best. We got a great group here. All right. Well, Donald, Danielle, and Granny, I'm going to go update that thumbnail. We're going to put Danielle on it now, and we're going to keep this going. Thank you all so much. Well, folks, we're taking another step, and holy moly, I am so grateful that God sent us, Danielle. I think you can all see that as well. And we just hit 100 concurrent on Facebook and YouTube only. If we look at Rumble is up as well. So we're getting close to 200 viewers all the time. And then throughout, we're getting about 400 to 500 unique viewers. So thank you all very much on Facebook for sharing. Share it all over the place, even off of Facebook. Go and give it to your friends. Send a text message. We're going to keep looking at this. And as you saw here, we are really being as honest as we can by delving into this information. And sometimes we're going to have to push back on each other, and sometimes we're going to have to sit and listen as well. I noticed here a comment from Jason that he wanted to see the bottom of page 1. So I got that ready for you there, Jason. I need the ticker to be off, though, please, ticker lady, so that he can see the bottom of the page. So there you go, Jason. There's the full page for you, bud, of page 1. And let me see if I can get that off. There you go. And Island Jason, I'll actually send you a copy. I'll send it through Twitter for you. Okay. So you can go ahead and look forward to that. And the rest of you, like Wendy says, share, share, share. That helps a lot. That helps a lot. Vanessa says the world is seeing us. You're right. America, Netherlands, and all over. We're seeing messages from a whole bunch of places. So thank you all very much. Let me go check this. Okay. But we got to wrap up. We got a lot of work. So make sure that you show up tomorrow. We got friends and family. Betty Carbert's going to be here. I believe Jacqueline's going to be joining us, and maybe more. So if you're a friend and family and you're watching, you haven't talked to Granny, you haven't talked to me, and you want to be on, reach out to one of us, Granny, through the Facebook page. You can even email Granny at the Operation Rescue. I'm sure she wouldn't mind if you're contacting her that way. And you can reach out to me at jason@yellowhead.vote, or on Twitter, you can DM me. I've opened them up, so reach out. And if you're friends and family, you want to say hi, we'll get you on. So thank you all very much. It was another good episode. We're running a little bit late today, but I hope you understand. I love you all very much, and God bless.